So this talk is mostly the way I've structured is more about my journey personally, how I came to San Francisco, how I came to the Valley, how I started in tech in general, and then did my transition to venture capital, and then going to talk a little bit about venture capital in general, what we do at Base10 Partners, and going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek into like Base11, which is our like automated investing platform that most of our investors use internally to be able to like judge companies and stuff. My name is Anirudh. I grew up in Delhi in India. I am from the southern part called Kerala, but I was brought up in like the capital. And I watched, have you guys watched the film The Social Network? David Fincher. So that was out when I was, I think, in 9th grade or 8th grade, something like that. And when that movie came out, I was like, okay, I need to be there. Like wherever this movie is happening, I want to be there. That's pretty much what convinced me. And then I started applying. So initially in India, you usually apply to the IITs, which is like the most elite institution in India. And like that's what my parents wanted me to do, like go to the IITs and stuff. But I was like, I don't want to stay in India. I want to go to San Francisco or the Valley. And I started working towards applying to US colleges. And then I went to a school called Minerva, which have anyone here heard about Minerva? Okay, you guys know about Minerva. So Minerva is a college that is based out of San Francisco, and the whole premise is that you go to a different city every semester. So it starts in San Francisco, the first 2 semesters in SF, and then after that you go to Seoul, India, Hyderabad, Berlin, Buenos Aires, London, and then Taipei. So we spend a semester each. There's a college there in each of the cities that we have a tie-up with. So for example, in Korea, it's Hanyang University. In India, it's like an International School of Business, ISB, which is based out of Hyderabad. And in London, it's UCL, University College London. So there's like tie-ups with different universities. And during my time at Minerva, so when I first came to SF, that was for Minerva. And the first year we stayed right opposite the Uber headquarters on Market Street. You guys probably went through Market Street today. And it's like the intersection of Market and Van Ness, which is where the old headquarters of Uber's used to be before they switched to the Mission Bay office. My kind of introduction to the city was mostly through like meetups. So every weekend we would have like a lot of students studying at Minerva go to these events where we could meet people who are working in the city, like engineers, people in marketing, people in like all across the spectrum. And there was a lot of hackathons. So I would also do hackathons with my peers. And in a lot of those hackathons is where I basically figured out, okay, computer science is a really cool way to like get some footing into the city and get a really good perspective on just like how people build here, what is the culture of innovation, how are people thinking about like solving different problems. And everything was pretty much like based on like what application of computer science can you do to like solve any particular problem. And that was really kind of cool to see. But then as I went to different cities, I was able to spend some time in Korea. There in Seoul, there was a lot of work happening around blockchain. So I worked at a company called Metadium, which was building an identity layer for the Korean like kind of public goods ecosystem, which is like if you have elections or if you have like a lot of local decisions to be made, rather than running it like through a lot of tedious operational processes and using like the traditional ballot system, how can we bring it online but with a lot of security? And that's why Metadium built like this app that they sold to the Korean government, which could be used to make a lot of small decisions in smaller communities. So for example, if you're in a neighborhood, the neighborhood I stayed was called Yongsan. And in Yongsan, you could basically download the Metadium app and know what the community is thinking about. So a lot of people wanted to like do repairs for the church nearby and wanted to like decide if we want to use the funds for this for like upgrading the church to fix some of the problems in the building, or do you want to like do some other things like fixing the road and stuff. And they used to vote, and they were actually using blockchain at that time. This is 2018. They were using blockchain to basically secure the votes cryptographically so that every person's not getting like single vote. And it's definitely a use case that has far more, it's like to like the cryptographic security was too much for what they were trying to do, but like it was the fundamentals of how like the blockchain kind of revolution, I would say, which is not a revolution, but it was like the blockchain movement is happening. They basically got acquired by Samsung towards the end, and the team was building the Knox. Have you guys heard about Samsung Knox?
Yeah.
Which is like the internal security division on that. Most of the team started working at the Knox stuff, but they had they were trying to basically bring blockchain for like public goods and like societal things. So I was able to work with them for 4 months, and there I was a product manager mostly. So I was working more on like the ideation, like what do we do here to like kind of take this technology and make it more broadly applicable, and that's why like we were able to pilot it within the community that I was living in. And then after that, I basically came to the next place I went to was in India. So when we had the India semester, I was able to start a startup with a person who was building tools for hospitals to check if they had hospital-acquired like contamination on like popular surfaces. So hospital-acquired infections, which is like when you go to a hospital and you're not really, you go for a particular ailment, but you go to the hospital, and because there's a lot of infectious diseases around and surfaces are not that clean, you get another disease. And the problem is Indian like public hospitals do not have a lot of funding to be just like doing like automated cleaning and just like having like really big cleaning teams that are cleaning the entire hospital all the time again and again. It's like quite a resource constraint that they have, and India has one of the highest rates amongst the public hospitals, not the private ones, one of the highest rates of hospital-acquired infections. So the startup that we were building there was mostly trying to create a device that can be basically installed on a lot of surfaces and can give you a real-time update on like what are the places where there is a lot of biotic contamination. So, and it was like a very cheap device. So our goal was to keep the cost as low as possible for the government hospitals so that we can sell it to the government and they can just get it installed. And then you get like a live dashboard view of like contamination, and like when it goes above a certain threshold, you can basically use whatever cleaning team you have within the hospital to go and get that solved, like get it cleaned or like get it decontaminated. And so we built that company. I worked on that company for about 6 months, and this was one when I was doing my India semester, but also right after that we had like our first summer break. So I basically continued working into the summer break into the company, and I really wanted to like I was very close to dropping off from university because the idea was actually picking up steam. We were running in 17 government hospitals all across India, and I was the co-founder and the not the technical co-founder, because the original the idea of using RLUs, which is relative light unit, which is used to so there's like a bioluminescent bacteria that or like a bioluminescent pathogen that you put that you put into like these surfaces, and if the contamination is too much, it'll like emit light. Because of like whatever contamination it is, it'll react and emit light, and you can have light meters that can check how much relative light units it is, and you can have a model that for different surfaces over time like looks at the data and be like, hey, if it's about this is probably like super contaminated. So the biological aspect of it was being done by my co-founder, and I was doing more of the data science stuff. At that time, I was more of a Python programmer working with the Python stack of things. And that was one of the very first moments when I was like building code that is actually being used in production at scale, and people were actually getting some monumental difference out of it. And as I continued working on that, I was, as I said, pretty convinced that it's time for me to drop out of college, go the traditional San Francisco route of like, yo, I'm a dropped out founder, give me some money. But my parents are not as delusional as, the rest of the world. So they were like, also Indian parents are kind of conservative when it comes to dropping out of school and stuff. So they were like, no, you can't. You have to finish college or else you're not welcome. So I ended up basically figuring out with my co-founder that you should continue with the company. Her name was Aishwarya, and she will give me some advisory shares that I still hold today, and I can go about my college life. And then she ended up hiring another co-founder, and they're still active. They have kind of they hit a plateau with the hospital-acquired infections product, because there's so much Indian government hospitals are willing to pay for that, and even though it's pretty good for them, there's so much issues in the bureaucracy of the Indian system that a lot of hospitals are not even like considering it something as they want to put. So the go-to-market motion, and it's very expensive to sell to government in India, and it's like a lot of corruption's also a little bit involved, and it just adds more fun to it. So so they started selling other stuff to actually private companies. They're selling more of these light meters and stuff to other companies who want to like build their own labs and stuff. So after that, I came back to Minerva, continued working on getting my college degree, which is what was important, and then I got a job offer at Wolfram. Have any of you guys used Wolfram? Yeah. Wolfram, cool. It's one of my favorite products as well. I mean, a lot of the Gen AI these days was like fundamentally started there, in my opinion. But I started working at Wolfram literally the next year, and I was again a product manager there, and I was working on the team that was building Wolfram Alpha, but for Asia, so Japan and India. And I was mostly on the Indian team because I grew up in India, and I knew a lot about what kind of products are required to like get more Indian customers. And the problem with Wolfram Alpha from the Indian perspective was that it was too oriented towards the Western curriculum of things. So if you did like A levels or if you did the Cambridge program, it was pretty much like easy for you to like use Wolfram Alpha. It was mostly like giving you step-by-step solutions, but in the perspective that is for the Western schooling system. And the problem is in India, the way you do a lot of these step-by-step solutions, or the way you do like in general calculations, there's a certain set of questions that come into the quizzes very often. That was not really tackled by the Wolfram's Indian product. So I was able to work with the Wolfram Alpha team to build it more for the Indian curriculum, which is called the CBSE curriculum. So I worked there for almost 2 years, was able to ship a bunch of stuff that a lot of Wolfram Alpha India users get to use every day. A lot of it was, one of the things that I worked on was the quizzing. They have a quizzing product now where you can like, right now if you go to ChatGPT and say, hey, quiz me on these kind of things, we had that experience for the Indian kind of Wolfram Alpha.in product like 3 years back. And then once I did that, I actually was going to go work full-time there at Wolfram when I was about to graduate, because I love the team, really smart people, a lot of work on like the frontiers of Gen AI. They were also working very closely with the Alexa and Siri team, and actually taking a lot of that data to like train language models within Wolfram. That team was like growing really fast, and it was a very interesting team. So I had the opportunity to start thinking of working with that team. But I was in San Francisco because our last semester was here, and it was the pandemic. And I was have you guys been to any of the WeWorks here? Yeah. So the WeWorks have the ping pong spot, right? Yeah. Where you can play ping pong. So I was finishing up my final project, trying to get done with school and go to the Wolfram headquarters, which is close to Chicago, where I met like this person playing ping pong who was working on a startup idea. And we just, we were both the only ones grinding at like 1 or 2 a.m. Like the entire WeWork was empty. And we'd be like, yo, you want to play ping pong with me? Because like I need a break. I was like, yeah, me too, I need a break too. And we played ping pong, and we became very competitive about it. Like every night I would be like, just stay there till 2 a.m. so that I can like catch him. I'm like, are you ready? And then it was like we had like a running score list, and we actually got pretty aggressive about it and became very close. And he was building a company for retirement in the United States, which is 401ks. So the main idea was that a lot of lower income workers in the US, like to put money into your pension plan, you have to take a percentage of income from your paycheck and put it into your pension plan. And then the company that you're working at will give like a little match or like a percentage bonus to like work with that. And that is not very equitable to, in general, like, if you're making more, if you're richer, you just have a higher likelihood of putting more money into your pension so that when you retire, you're like good to go. And that's actually a general societal problem in the United States, that a lot of retirement funds are focused on like if you're rich, but like if you're like earning on around the average or like less than the average of what the U.S. earner earns, your retirement is actually pretty insecure, because like especially if a very high medical bill hits you, you are kind of lost for any options, because there's not a lot of money in the in your bank account, or even if you had saved for pension, that can all be wiped off on one single go. So we wanted to build a system wherein people who are working like the lower paying jobs are still able to save a lot for retirement. And the idea was to build it by giving some sort of credit. So if you're eligible to earn, like let's say up to 100% of like 30% of your paycheck to like put into the pension plan, and the company will give like 100% match, you can actually end up earning up to $22,000 more, which is the max limit of what you would be earning if you didn't participate in the system. That probably sounds confusing. So let's say you work at Walmart, you are making $60,000 a year, and then you have a program wherein out of your $60,000 paycheck, you were to put like, let's say 30%. So around, 30%. How much is $20,000 out of 1/3? Yeah, 33%. Yeah. You can actually put up to 1/3 of your paycheck over the year into your retirement account, and then Walmart will match 100% of it. So you can get another $30,000 boost on your entire year. You can go from earning $60,000 that year to $90,000, but that would mean that $30,000 that you put into your 401k is locked till you retire. And that also means that year, liquid cash, you're only going to have $40,000. So what we did was we basically became like a credit system in which you put the $20,000, but we will for every paycheck that you're losing that money, we will give you that money so that to you it feels like a full paycheck. And then it goes into your 401k account. And then when you switch employers, you actually have the ability to like roll over some of that money out. And so when you do that switch, like let's say you worked at Walmart for 3 years, you made like cumulative $60,000 from this. And through our credit model, you would give us like a 10% of your match. So let's say because you made $20,000 extra the first year and $60,000 over the course of the next 3 years, you will give us 10% of that as like a interest/credit fee, and still go home with like almost $6,000. You made $6,000 out of that will come to us for that extra 60,000 you earned. So you basically go home with like $54,000 extra dollars by just using our service. That was the core idea. I thought it was like really powerful because the retirement system in the US is worth trillions of dollars. While I was playing ping pong, these were the conversations we were having. And then
So the idea behind is that you take the money that the employer gives in matches.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this money and you give back the part that was kind of inaccessible to the employee.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you were making $60,000 a year, your paycheck per month is going to be anywhere around $3,000 to $4,000, right? But like if you were to do the full match, you would lose like in that $3,000 a month, you would almost lose like 30%. So you would lose like almost $1,000 because you're putting it into the thing.
You're unlocking.
So we are saying you keep your whole paycheck, we'll put that $1,000, and then when you're switching employers from this pool of money that is now in your 401k, that extra $60,000 is right there, take that money out, and there's a little penalty you have to pay. So the actual cost to you comes out to be 20%, but that's still like more than what you would have made. And this is only for people who can't afford to like participate in this program, because they have like, their school's kids' fees to pay and, rent to pay. And like, if they were to make all those payments, they can't contribute. It's for people like that to be able to like still be participating in the system. And the companies also like it because the companies actually have quotas of like how much money they need to put in the retirement system. And if they don't do it, they end up paying like a extra tax to the U.S. government, who will put that into like the proper fund or whatever. So that was the premise of the idea. So I got to start there as like the first engineer, built the entire system out. We were able to give out almost $8 million of these credits over time to like thousands of customers. We're still the company's still active, and that was the first time I was out of college working on a full-time idea by myself with the co-founders, and it was really cool. But over time, I basically grew kind of tired of like just working in like. So the over time, this kind of a model, what it became is a credit underwriting system. So if you work at a firm, if you work at Klarna, if you work at any of the big fintech companies, there's only fundamentally two things that you can make money out of. One is either giving loans out and making interest, or providing a marketplace and charging like a transaction fee, which is like what Stripe and all the other, like that's one bucket, or the other bucket is like the Klarna, the firms, or like even the SoFi. SoFi is one of the most successful fintech companies, but what they are essentially is a bank doing a lot of lending business. So I've quickly figured out that fintech seems cool before you get into it, but once you get really into the weeds of it, it is just banking with like extra layers of like coolness, I guess. So it was not something that I wanted to like continue working on because there was not a lot of innovation in what I was doing. So I ended up I got a call from Base10, which is not here, but they were looking at that time to start a internal team that is going to build a platform that all the investors can use to like kind of source investments. And it was cool because I would get to like be very close to the investments world as a venture capital, as someone working in venture capital, but also continue my love for engineering and innovation. And that's how I ended up here, which has been a year since I joined this company, and I've been here for the past year. So Lendtable, which is the retirement startup that I was working at, is still functioning, and they're also out of San Francisco. And I still live with one of the co-founders, the guy who I played ping pong with, who introduced me to the idea, who got me to start working. I still live with him. He's still working on the idea. We're very good friends, but unfortunately, as you scale a fintech company, for me, it became kind of boring, so I switched out. So yeah, that was my journey till here. I hope that was insightful. The next thing that I want to kind of talk about is why San Francisco. And I understand that you guys are coming here to be convinced that this city is where you guys should move to start your own tech journeys. And like, do you guys need any convincing anymore?
It's an easy sale. It's an easy sale. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I don't think there's much I need to talk about that. Like, I can just show you one chart here. This is the amount of patents that come out of a city per capita. And US, I mean, you can only compare US data to US cities. And like other countries definitely have patent systems, but they're not going to be normalized to how patents work in the US. So I don't think, but even if you were to normalize that entire system to like just how much innovation, like I think patents is a good proxy for innovation. So I would assume that San Jose and San Francisco, which is just the valley, is just crazy high as compared to like even New York, which is like 1/4 of San Jose. And that's just how much innovation that is in this little strip of land. Like every person you meet is probably working on a cool new idea. You're just more likely to meet people who would post a patent, but that's also because all the tech companies here, and they kind of like push the patents and they pay a lot of money to do that. But still, there's big companies in New York, there's big companies in LA, but like this shit is black. So I don't think if you guys need any more convincing, like I can convince you, but I hope this chart does that job very well. I love data, and I think data is the best way to convince people of things. And then next I want to talk about Base10 and Base11. So welcome to the Base10 office. We are a multi-stage fund. We've been investing for 6 years now. We have two funds. We have an early fund and we have a growth stage fund. The early fund mostly does check sizes from like $1 to $2 million, and we mostly do seed and A's. And the growth fund is more Series B and above, and that does anywhere from like 10 to 40 to $50 million. And usually we always are our preference is to always be the lead investor. We usually don't do smaller deals except for like if we're like we generally avoid being not the majority investor in any round. But if it's a really cool company, we will kind of change that route. But we generally try to be the first and the majority investor. And some of our successful companies include Stripe, Brex. We're very focused on Latin America as well. So if you guys know Book, if you guys know Conta Simples, those are some of the big deals that we've done in South America. Cabify and Nubank. Actually, our founder Ade, he's a serial founder. His first company was a Spanish company called Twenty. I don't know if you guys know about Twenty, but he was the founder of Twenty. He exited Twenty when he was pretty young, and then after that he came to SF to go to GSB. And then while here, he did a lot of other things, and one of which was he was advising a lot of companies, including Nubank, which is like the biggest fintech company to come out of Brazil. He was also advising Cabify, and he was working at Workday Ventures. And then he eventually was like, you know what, I'm really good at this. He got a lot of success from Nubank and Cabify, so he was like, it's time for me to start my own thing. And that is now Base10, and Base10's also participated in those companies, and those are some of our success stories. But our main focus is to be able to invest in trends and not like just businesses. So, and that is where B11 comes in, and I'll give you a very sneak peek of like our investor platform. But basically, we try to find like a emerging trend and bet on that trend, and then find the best winners for certain segments and certain verticals. So, for example, one of our most successful trends is called business in a box. Companies that are making just a certain function of a business as a product in itself and selling that whole function. So for example, if you guys know Stripe, essentially is just automating the payments aspect of any business. Like no matter what business you are, you need payments, and that's why Stripe as a company has just done that really well. Another company, like for example, Rippling does HR. It just has automated all of HR into like one kind of box, and basically if you are any business, it would just offer you that entire kind of operation and operative stack is like, here you go, just put Rippling into your business, and then all the HR stuff like hiring new employees, managing payroll, managing insurance, managing benefits is all that one box. And actually even those bigger boxes are now becoming smaller and smaller boxes. So there's a lot of companies that are doing one part of what Rippling does, but much better than Rippling, and at a much lower cost. And they'll have APIs that are the best thing to give, and you don't have to think about it. And like that is like one of the bets that we started making. Like, okay, there's a huge emerging trend here, where like if we just keep breaking these businesses down into like smaller fragments, we can't just find winners or possible winners. We can also know what are some of the cooler places where there's like opportunity. So like if we see like, hey, a lot of people hate taxation for startups, and there's no company that we see that is doing it really well, but we see there's like an emerging need for it, we'll tap into our like network of people we know and like try to find if there's businesses anywhere, but also use B11, and that's where I come in and my team comes in. So Base11 is like a team within Base10, and it's basically just two people, me and Robbie, who is the head of data science, and I had the engineering stuff. And a lot of our work is automating this process of once we find a thesis, scaling that process of finding companies that fit that thesis really well through LLMs and internet and scraping. So that's
I think it's like a crawler that you identify.
Yeah. So it is this. I would say it's a sidekick to an investor. It goes as a browser extension, and as you are going through companies as a founder, like you will get newsletters, you'll get like a ping from
if you
someone.
identify the trend, whatever, I don't know,
Mhm.
finance automation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, the CFO of his finance automation, then whatever pops on the web, you get.
Yeah. So we will read everything about this company that is online,
So
and
does
then
the research work for the analyst like much faster?
exactly. Exactly. They can put it into perspective much faster.
Okay.